really made things tough. But one thing about Andrew also that's interesting is that Andrew is a person who is relevant today because right now you're dealing with something called this COVID, this coronavirus that's ravaging the world. And the biggest challenge with this virus is that it is contagious, right? It spreads from one person to another. Well, one thing that people don't know is that actually there's an economic version of contagion as well, financial contagion. And the way that works is that that my situation might affect your situation, right? One country's economic decisions can affect another country's economic decisions, and it can spread all around the world. And what this is this creates a form of risk that exists in our society. It's almost like if you date somebody, and let's say you date somebody that's in somebody, someone probably knows somebody who's done this, right? You date somebody who's in the drug game. Well, that puts your life in danger, right? Their life has become contagious for yours, for your own. So you have to think about who you're around, not just what you do, but what other people do as well. And that all relates to this word called risk. Everybody type the word risk in the chat because the word risk is very, very important today. And let me show you another guy. This guy's named Renee Stoltz. Renee Stoltz was also in my academic department when I finished my PhD. He's literally one of the top 2 or 3 risk management experts on the planet. Literally, he makes millions of dollars every year talking about risk. Now, let me ask you all a question real quick. If I was to say, how many of you understand what it means to be in a risky situation? How many of you would say yes? How many of you know what it means? Like if I say, "Ooh, that's risky. Ooh, don't be careful. That's risky." Do you know what I mean? How many of you feel like you would kind of get what I'm saying? You get the gist of what I'm saying. Give me a yes or no in the chat. Okay, so risk is a big deal, right? You know what risk feels like. You didn't have to go to school to understand what it means to be in a low risk scenario or a high risk scenario. Another thing about risk that's interesting is that it not only does it change from situation to situation, not only do we have an inherent understanding of what it means to be in a high risk versus low risk situation, but also risk involves what you know, what you don't know, and then what you don't know, you don't know. So there's layers to this. That's my point. There's layers to this, right? When I talk about risk, like for example, when the pandemic started, there was this risk that this pandemic could be bad, right? But the problem was not just the risk that we knew about, right? We knew, okay, well, you catch this virus, here's the odds of people dying and blah, blah. But then there's things you don't know. Like we didn't know about, remember when the pandemic started, we didn't know about the variants. We didn't know about what the politics were going to look like. We don't know what doctors to trust, right? So then you had the known, and then you had the unknown, and then you had the unknown unknowns. We had things that became a factor where we didn't even know that they would become a factor. Tell me if you get what I'm saying. Let me know if you get what I'm saying. I don't want to talk too fast or over anybody's head with this or anything like that. But do you see what I mean? So this was complex. This was complex. This whole pandemic, figuring out what to do with your kids, whether to send them to school or not to send them to school, whether or not, what you were going to do, what was going to happen economically, what was going to happen politically, what was going to happen health-wise, right? This was a very risky kind of scenario, right? Well, risk is interesting because risk is something, and this is where we're getting into with stock options, and I'm going to break all this down for you today. And the Black Financial Channel, by the way, that's the YouTube channel, in case you guys don't know about it, but you can go there, and I talk about stuff like this every single day on the channel. Risk is basically something that isn't just something you feel, but also as a mathematician, risk is something that can actually be mathematically quantified. That like everything that you see on the stock market every day, whenever you're seeing money being made on the stock market, a lot of this comes from the quantification of risk. It comes from somebody sitting down with a computer doing, advanced mathematical calculations with crazy formulas to figure out how risky the situation looks. So when you see your stocks drop, some of y'all saw some blood in your stock portfolio this week, especially if you own some tech stocks, things like that. What you really saw was you saw the presence of risk. You saw that there was uncertainty. Okay, what is this virus going to do? What's going to happen with the supply chain? Is inflation going to go up or down? Everybody knows what inflation is. That's another thing that everybody understands. You know what it feels like when the price goes up. You know what it feels like when the rent is too damn high, right? So ultimately, all these things are playing out right now in the markets. And here's the benefit of being involved with stock options. The benefit of stock options And the reason I love stock options and the reason I believe stock options should be a part of anybody's portfolio is because stock options give you the ability to calibrate risk. Stock options give you the ability to manage the amount of risk that you have exposure to at any given point in time. If you feel like you're in too risky of a situation, stock options can be used to reduce your risk, right? Sometimes risk becomes bad and toxic if it's too high. But you also don't want a no risk scenario, right? But think about it. In your own life, do you want to overly risky life? No, you don't want that, right? Like, because I mean, what's overly risky? Well, I could go bungee jumping every week. I could go out and swim with sharks. I could go become a kingpin in the dope game, right? That's a really risky life. And sure, there's a lot of money that can be made, a lot of clout I could get. I could flex on Instagram and take pictures with stacks of money and all that, right? But then there's the downside to that, which is why most of y'all are not out here trapping and trying to go make money as a dope dealer, because that can also come with death or 100 years in prison, right? So you don't want too much risk. So you calibrate your risk. You reduce your risk by saying, you know what, I'll take some chances, but I'm not going that far. I'm not doing none of that crazy stuff, right? But then on the flip side of that, do you want a life that has no risk, right? Well, what would that life look like? Well, first of all, you don't want any risk of ever being in a car crash, so you never drive your car ever again. You don't want to have any risk. I heard that somebody got shot this weekend, so in my city. So I'm just gonna stay in my house under my bed and not go out anymore. I'm afraid to get my heart broken and being in a bad relationship. So I'm just never gonna date anyone for the next 50 years, right? That's what a zero risk life looks like. Now give me a yes or no. How many of you would want to live a life with no risk, where you took no chances, right? None at all. Give me a yes or no. Does that sound appealing to you? No, it doesn't, right? Like you don't want that, right? So you don't want it's like Goldilocks, right? You don't want too hot, you don't want too cold, you want it right in the middle. And the other thing about risk, because remember, all of you have known your whole life what risk is. The other thing about risk is that your appetite for risk can shift. It can change. Sometimes you're feeling like, okay, you want to kind of hunker down and keep it safe. Sometimes you want to get out there and take some chances, right? So you can calibrate that. You calibrate your life. You calibrate your risk all the time, every single day. You're doing it all the time. All these things that we talk about, you've known these things your whole life. We're just quantifying it for you in a way that makes sense as it pertains to your stock investments, etc. So while I can show you advanced complex mathematical equations that explain what risk looks like, truth is you know what risk was your whole life, right? But being able to calibrate it by using the tools that have been developed by the professors out there like myself, it allows you to kind of pinpoint exactly what you want, right? The Goldilocks, right? Not too hot, not too cold, just right in the middle, just lukewarm, right? So options allow you to calibrate risk. It allows you to increase your risk if that's what you want. You want to get a little taste of something spicy, right? It allows you to reduce your risk. You say, oh, no, this is too much for me. And the other thing about risk that's interesting is that there's no one size fits all. There's no one size fits all. I can't sit here and tell you one specific way to invest or to use stock options that's going to work for everybody in this room, because everybody, it's like if we're talking about what do you want to eat for lunch, some of y'all might like really spicy food, some of y'all don't like spicy food, some of y'all may want chicken, some may want steak, and some may want a cheeseburger, right? So the best way to really talk about it is to talk about all the different kinds of meals you can prepare so that you can then pick the meal that works best for you. So this is where that financial education, financial training matters. So while I cannot tell you exactly how to use stock options in terms of what's going to work for you, I can tell you that you will probably benefit from using stock options and adding them to your portfolio. The other thing about options is this, and let's keep it simple before we get started into some of the details of how they trade and all that stuff, is how many of y'all know what it means to not have any options? Like in life, how many of y'all know what it means to have lots of options versus having no options? You ever, I don't know, anybody ever been on a date before, ever been in a bad relationship? Maybe where you love somebody that didn't love you back, wishing you had more options, right? Or had to go to a job that you hated because and thinking, God, I wish I had other options, right? And you know how good it feels to have options and how bad it feels to not have options. Just a little point here that's really important to understand is that I have a theory. I have a theory. Y'all want to hear it? Okay, so here's a theory. I'm gonna throw it out. This is an Uncle Boyce, Dr. Boyce theory. I believe that when you look at the studies and you see where so many black people are very depressed, we have a higher rate of depression than any other group. I told you, like we always off the Richter scale on every measure of good and bad things that a person can feel in their life. Well, I believe that a lot of the depression in our community stems from a lack of options. Is a lack of options, right? Because when you grow up, you're raised by your parents to get up and go to work and get a job and work for somebody for the rest of your life. You right, you go to college, get your degree, and get that job that you hate, but you tolerate it because you feel like that's the only path you have. And then next thing you know, maybe you're making good money, maybe not. But either way, though, you get 35, 40 years old, and you say, wait, there's got to be more to this. Like this can't be life. I can't do this for the rest of my life, right? So, well, a lot of times, and then you get depressed. You get sad about that sometimes, right? And you get sad, I think, because options are missing. Now, if you have plenty of options, if you could go and move to Tahiti tomorrow, or go buy yourself a mansion to make yourself feel better, get yourself a new Porsche, or go and pay off your grandma's mortgage or whatever, then that might make you feel a little bit better, right? Not that money will buy you happiness, but it certainly helps, right? It certainly helps. Money problems will definitely buy you unhappiness, right? So options are linked to your well-being. They actually did a study with rats, and they found that when rats were put in a situation where they had no options, they were typically more depressed. They measured depression by chemicals in their brain. The serotonin in their brain measured their depression levels, and they found that rats that were stuck in a situation that had no options, they were more depressed than the rats that had an option. They could get out of the cage, right? So really, at the end of the day, if you want to know the secret to happiness, remember I told you when I talked to my daughter, we didn't talk about money and careers and all that. I said, let's start with happiness. Let's start there. Right, because that's where there's not going to be a daddy-daughter argument. No daughter is going to say, "No, daddy, I want to be unhappy. Like you're telling me what to do." No. So let's start with something basic. And so when you talk about happiness, you want to understand how all these things connect. So options are connected to a lot of things, including your happiness. So stock options. Let's talk specifically about stock options. Now that we know what risk is and we know what options are, and I want you to go back to that in the event that you run across something where it seems a little confusing, or you're like, "Wait a minute, I don't understand that." Just go back to understand, like, wait, I get this. I understand this. I've always known what it's like to have options. I've always known what it's like to take on risk. And then that'll make more sense to you. All right, so let's hop in here. Okay, so this is from my stock options masterclass, which, by the way, if you, I can't teach the whole masterclass today, of course, but this is a few slides off that training. So if you're interested, you can feel free to go to stockoptionsmasterclass.com. You can get a 50% discount on that program if you're interested in learning about stock options on a deeper level. So stockoptionsmasterclass.com. Somebody type that in the chat. All right. So how to trade stock options. Okay. First thing, this is the layout of the curriculum in terms of what we cover. We talk about trading options and goals, what your goals are, different types of options, how they're used, how time, risk, and other factors can shape the price of an option, something called intrinsic value versus premium value, how to open an account and add options to your portfolio, and trading strategies that every option investor needs to know. So here's the deal. Why do you want to own options? Well, there's a couple of reasons why people want to own options. One could be to use options to reduce the risk in their portfolio. So think about why you might buy car insurance. Well, that might come in the form of what they call a put option. A car insurance is what? It's money that you pay just in case your car breaks down, or just in case you have an accident, right? Just in case. You're not planning to have an accident, or you buy health insurance, not because you're planning to get sick and go to the hospital, but just in case, right? You want to feel secure. You want to reduce your risk, right? Well, and when it comes to investing, the same thing can happen. If I have a stock, and let's say my stock has done really well, and it's gone way, way up, and I'm worried about it crashing, well, I can go buy a put option, which gives me certain rights and options to do things that will protect me from the downside. Now, another reason why people might buy an option is to speculate. They have a little appetite for the sauce. They want to be in the game a little bit, right? So that's what you call a call option. The call options are the options that people buy when they believe that the price could go up and they want to be in the game, right? And the beauty is that you can use a call option to get yourself in the game without having to pay the same amount of money. So I might look at Apple and I might say, I think Apple's really going to do well. I think this stock's going to keep on going. Because remember, if you started investing, say, I don't know, the same amount of money that you put into your car note in Apple stock 5-6 years ago, you'd have probably hundreds of thousands of dollars by now, at least tens of thousands of dollars. Like you would have an insane, ridiculous amount of money, because right now Apple's trading what, 179, 180. Back, 5 years ago, you could have got it for $35, right? So that's like buying a house for I don't know, $350,000, and then 5 years later the house is worth 1.8 million. Like that's the trend. That's the equivalent of what Apple stock has done, right? So let's say that you believe Apple stock's going to take off, and you want to make some long-term preparations or whatever, or even short-term, whatever you think. Well, you can actually go, and instead of paying the whole 182 for a share of Apple stock, you can buy options on Apple stock, and the options move in conjunction with the stock. So in a way, though, you think about the option. Options are called derivative securities. So a derivative is something that derives from something else, right? So it's like, think about this. Think about when I look at my wife and I look at our daughters. Our daughters derive from their mother, physically and psychologically and spiritually and everything, right? So I watch how they operate. When mama goes into the living room, they come into the living room. When mama is in the hair salon picking out certain products, they're right behind mama doing what mama does, just doing it in a different way because they're young and they're learning, but they're still kind of connected to what mama is doing, right? Well, the same thing is true with a stock and an option. The option is like the child. The stock is like the parent. So when the stock, if you buy, say, a call option, the call options are connected to the upside, then the option moves in conjunction with the stock. Stock goes up, option goes up. Stock goes down, option goes down, right? So ultimately, a lot of times people will use options because they want to be in on the game. They want to be connected to the upside of a stock, but they don't want to necessarily pay the full price of becoming a full owner in the stock. The third reason that people may use options is because they want to generate income from their portfolio. Now, personally, I sell a lot of stock options. I buy stock, and then I will sell the options to people that want to buy them, right? And that generates income. That allows me to generate income off my portfolio. So what does that mean to sell an option to generate income? Well, it's kind of like, let's say you own some land. And let's say a company comes along and they heard a rumor that maybe there was going to be a McDonald's and a Burger King built across the street from your land, which is going to increase the value of that property tremendously because then it becomes commercial property or close to commercial property, all that stuff, right? So your land is worth $100,000. Well, somebody comes along and says, look, I don't want to buy your land from you, but I want to buy an option from you that will allow me to purchase your land from you for a certain price within a certain time. Right. So I might come to you, and this happens all the time. We talk about the Oprah Winfrey Network. People sell scripts like that to the Oprah Winfrey Network all the time, where they don't necessarily sell the product. They'll sell an option that will give you the right to buy the product if you want to. So I've given you, let's say I give you $5,000, and I say, look, I'm gonna give you $5,000 to hold it for me. I want you to give me the right to buy it within the next 5 years for 115. That means that no matter what offers you get, no matter who comes along for the next 5 years, that's mine if I want it. If I don't want it, you can sell it to somebody else. But if I want it, that's mine because I bought the option. I didn't buy the land, but I bought the option on the land. You see options play out a lot in sports contracts where a team will sign a player. They'll say, we'll give you $5 million a year for the next 5 years with an option to re-sign you for $7 million a year, right? So that means that if the player does really well, if his stock goes up, and he becomes the best player in the whole NBA, and he says, look, I'm getting offers for $20 million from the Golden State Warriors, the team can come back and say, no, you can't take that offer because we gave you extra money for the option to buy your services for $7 million a year. So you got to sign with us. You can't go to another team, right? So whenever there's an option, there's a trade-off, right? The option gives the person who paid for the option, you have additional rights. You always receive something. Whenever you give out money, you should be receiving something. So if I buy an option, I'm buying the right to do something, not the obligation, but I'm buying the right to do something. When I sell an option, right? When I think about this, you know what it means when you give your options away. You when you get married, you locked in a great person, but you also give away your options to date around. You can't date no more. You can't go play a field. You can't go find out what's out there anymore, right? So same thing is true with stocks. When I sell my option on my stock, I lose certain rights as well, but I get money in exchange for that, right? So options can be used for three things: to reduce risk, increase risk, or to generate income. Those are typically the three biggest things that options are used for. Now, let me talk to you about certain types of options. And I'm going to put stuff on the screen, but I don't want you to get carried away with what is up here. I'd rather you focus on the analysis to help you understand what's going on with that. Okay. All right. So so basically, well, this is why you might buy an option. There are two major types of options. There are calls and puts. Calls give you a piece of the upside. Puts give you a piece of the downside. Right. So if I buy a call, then that means if the stock goes up, then the value of my option goes up, and I make money. If I buy a put, then that means that I have reserved the right to sell the stock at a certain price, which means, to translate that basically means when the stock price goes down, the value of my option goes up. Right. Okay, so here's what is important to understand. There are a few terms in options that are really critical. One term is what they call the premium. The premium is the price that you pay to own the option, right? So I want to buy an option on your land. I got to pay you $5,000, so my premium is $5,000. Or I want to buy an option on your movie script. I'm going to give you $100,000 for the option on your script. This happens all the time in Hollywood. They don't buy the actual script, but they'll buy an option on it. They'll say, you know what? We're not sure if we want it or not, but we definitely want to lock you in. In fact, actually, that's a tactic some companies use when they see a competitor coming, or they see something coming out that might actually stifle something else they got going on. They'll buy an option on it and lock it in and say, well, now you can't sell it to anybody because we gave you $100,000 to hold it and to sit still with it, right? So remember, when you sell an option, you're selling something. On the financial markets, the premium might be the cost that you pay for an option on that Apple stock. Like, okay, I believe Apple's at 179. I believe it can go up. I want to buy an option on Apple stock. The premium is what I pay for that right to get in the action, to get in the game. Strike price. Strike price is important because the strike price is basically the price that where most of the action happens, right? So let me give you an example. So let's say Apple's at 179, and I believe it's going to go up to 190 by next summer. Well, I can buy an option that will allow me to purchase Apple stock at 190 at any point between now and next summer. All options come with a time limit. There's an expiration date. It's like a ticking clock, right? So I can go to the market and say, I want to buy a call option on Apple stock with a strike price of 190. That means that I pay a certain price such that I have the right to buy Apple stock at any point in the next 6 months for 190. Now, I could get more time. I could stretch it out. I could say, well, I don't want the option to expire in 6 months. I want it to expire 2 years from now. Well, time is money. Time costs money. I'm locking in somebody's stock for the next 2 years. Well, they're going to charge me more money for that. So my premium is going to go up the more time I add into the equation. The more time I need, the more I got to pay for that time. Just like anybody else. If somebody says, I want to have the option to hire you for this position. I don't know if I want to do it yet, but I'm going to lock you in. I want you to stay home and not work for anybody. Well, if they're locking in your time, then you're going to need something to compensate you for that. Or if you're dating a loser and you are wasting time, we all know about this, right? Wasting time with a loser. Well, that loser is locking you in, right? He's taking up the seat, but maybe he's not the right man for you. But yet what he's done is he's eliminated your options. He's cost you because he's wasting your time, right? Because now that you're dating him, you can't go date anybody else, right? So sometimes unlocking from that bad choice can open up your options and add value to your life, right? So ultimately, with the premium, it tends to go up with time. The more time I lock something in, the more I have to pay. Also, the strike price. The call option gives me the right to buy the stock at 190. I pay a certain premium for that. If I say something like, well, I really don't know if it's going to go to 190, I'll get another strike price. Let me buy the option with the right to buy it at 180. Well, I'm going to pay more for that. I got to pay more for that because it's probably going to go to 180. It may not go to 190. 190 is far away. 180 is very, very close, right? So ultimately, the premium will change based on the time that the option is alive before it dies, and also the strike price at which my option kicks in and I can go buy the stock at that price. So the third thing is time to maturity. We talked a second ago about time, and time is money. Time to maturity is basically how long the option is going to live. This is one of the most risky aspects of buying an option. One of the most risky things about buying a stock option is that it's not like buying a share of stock. You buy a share of stock, you can sit there and you can sit on it for 80 years. You can sit there and you can just wait for the rest of your life for the stock to go up. you buy an option, there's always a time to maturity. There's always a moment where the clock strikes midnight and Cinderella turns into a pumpkin, right? There's always a point where that option is no longer valid and that stock is released. The owner of that stock can do whatever they want. And there's always an owner. When I buy an option on a share stock, there's always somebody who sold me that option. The way financial markets work is they work like making a baby. With every mommy, there must be a what? There must be, if a baby has a mommy, then that baby must also have a what? A daddy. Exactly. Right. So for every transaction in the options market, for every buyer, there must be a seller. If ain't nobody selling, then you can't buy it. So what happens on the market? Remember that with these markets, it's like a seesaw. There's always two people on each side of the transaction. So when I sell my options, I own the stock, and I say, I want to sell some options, generate some income, let some people speculate, hope for the best. They're going to pay me money for the right to do that with my stock. I'm selling it on the market. Somebody on the other side is buying it. Now, do I know who that person is? No, I don't. I have no idea who it is. I just know that when I get on my app and I say, I want to sell my options, they just say, okay, somebody offered $2.12 per share. I say, fine, I'll take it. I have 100 shares. I get 212 times 100, which would be, or $2.12 times 100. Let's say that's 212 bucks, or times 1,000. That might be 2,100 bucks. So options can be something that you can use on both sides of the fence. So never forget that, right? And this is something important to understand because a lot of people trade options in one way. They do is they buy call options, and they buy what are called out of the money call options, which are options where the strike price is above the current price, right? So that means that right now you can't exercise that option because it hasn't hit the strike price, right? And a lot of people do that, and let me just tell you, a lot of those people lose money. A lot of people lose money. A lot of people lose money on that. Every study I have ever seen in my life, and I've read a ton of them, says that when you're consistently buying out of the money call options, that is a long-term sucker's bet. It's like going to the casino over and over again, where you think every time you go, when you go to Vegas, you think you're going to win, right? And somebody does win. Millions of people win in Vegas every day, but there are more losers than winners. So the house always wins. The house always wins. So that thing that you're seeing right now, right now with the Reddit guys and the meme stocks and all that, that's being driven by a lot of people that are gambling by buying out of the money call options because they're looking for that quick flip. I bought the option for $2. Now it's worth $8. So I whatever amount of money I invested, it quadrupled, right? But also, if it doesn't hit that strike price by the expiration date, then that option can go down to nothing. You can lose every single penny that you have. So as an investor, you're not looking for situations where it's all or nothing, right? You're looking for situations where you got the upside, but you're not going to go down to zero if things don't work out. Because right now, things are not working out. Let me tell you what's going on in the economy right now. Right now, I've been selling options like crazy to people who have been buying these options thinking the stock market's going to go up. Well, what's the stock market been doing lately? It's been getting its butt kicked, not just for a couple of days, for weeks now, maybe months. I got to go check. But the stock market's been dropping. So every week when I'm selling the options, people are paying me money to speculate. They're buying the out of the money call options, right? And as the price is going down, they're losing. But guess what? I get to keep the money that they gave me. I get to keep that money, and I still own my stock. The price went down, right? But I still own it. It's mine. Right? So ultimately, you want to sort of think about options in a holistic framework. You don't want to think about it in the simple-minded way that people are thinking about right now, because a lot of people are losing money. So let me share a few more terms that you want to understand when it comes to options. These are factors. When you look at all the equations, these literally options, the prices come from mathematical equations. There was something called the Black-Scholes option pricing model that was created many, many years ago that actually came out of physics, believe it or not, the physics heat equation that allowed them to figure out what options should be worth. These are some of the variables that are in this stock or that are in the formula. Also, the in the money. In the money is when you have an option where the strike price we'll speak specifically about call options, because explaining puts, I have just a few more minutes, so I don't have time to explain the differences with calls and puts. Again, stockoptionsmasterclass.com is where you can go if you want to jump into our masterclass. It's really thorough. There's a lot of stuff there. It's stockoptionsmasterclass.com. But with call options, in the money is basically an option where the current stock price is higher than the strike price. So the same way I gave that analogy to you, where I said, look, Apple's trading at, let's say, 179. I believe Apple's going to go to 190 by the summer. I could buy what they call an out of the money option, where I pay a certain amount of money, and if Apple stock moves toward 190 and surpasses it, I can make more money. I can either make money by executing the option, meaning that I can go buy the stock. So let's say the price goes to 210, right? I can buy the stock at 190, sell it at 210. I make $20 a share. Follow me? Give me a yes if that makes sense. If that makes sense. If you're following what I'm saying, give me a yes. Okay. So that can happen. But also another interesting thing about options is that options have a life of their own, just like our kids, right? We think about our kids. Our kids are derivatives. They're derivatives of their parents, and they kind of do what we sort of tell them to do and all that. But sometimes kids, you know how kids are. Sometimes kids want to do their own thing. You know, our 14-year-old, you know, she's like all other 14-year-olds. Some days she's sweet, some days she's a demon, and she'll sit in her room and play on her phone all day and just kind of do stuff that doesn't make any sense. So options, and that's because she has a life of her own. Well, options, just like those kids, remember the option is the child, the stock is the parent. Well, sometimes options have their own inherent value, that where they have their own separate market from the stock market. So let's say, for example, I buy an option to with a strike price of 190 on that Apple stock. So I buy it at 179. The strike is 190. Let's say the price starts moving up very quickly. It moves up from 179 to 185. Right? It still hasn't hit the strike. I still can't exercise the option. But what happens is that the value of the option goes up. Anybody who wants to buy that same option with that same expiration date and that same strike price is going to have to pay more than I paid, right? So I can go back to the market and say, yo, look, I bought this option for $2 a share, but the stock has moved way up. It looks like it might hit that 190. You can buy it from me, but you got to pay $5, right? Or the market will tell you this. You don't get to pick the price, right? But you can go in and you can say, look, you know, here, I want to sell the option now, right? So you can sell an option the same way you can sell shares of stock. So that's one of the beauties of the option market, is it has something that's really important in investing called liquidity. Liquidity is really important because liquidity is basically how easily can I get my money out if I'm done, if I don't want to participate in this process anymore, right? So I bought the option Tuesday. The stock price shot up on Wednesday. I want to sell that sucker Thursday. I don't want to hold it until the summer, right? I just want to get out of the game now because my option went up in value. You can do that, right? So that's another benefit of participating in the options market. So given that I only have a few more minutes, I'm going to kind of summarize and kind of give you sort of the overview in terms of why you want options to be part of your portfolio. Think of your stock portfolio like a bowl of soup, right? Or you know, or let's say a pot of soup that's on the stove, and you're cooking it, and you taste it, and it's a little too hot and it's a little too bland, right? You're like, it's almost there, but it burned my tongue, and it's also a little bit. It just tastes, you know, it don't taste like black people made it. You know, black people, we add that extra spice. We know how to cook some good food, right? So what do, right? Maybe you turn it down, you cool it off a little bit, maybe pour something in there, some juice or sauce or whatever to cool it off, right? Because it's too hot. And then also you might add a little salt, a little pepper, a little paprika, right? And then you're like, okay, this is right. This is perfect. This is perfect. Well, options allow you to do that with your portfolio. So when you're trading stocks without including options in your investment strategy, you're really cooking like some pretty bland food that may be a little too hot. Like your stock portfolio may be too risky. You may be losing money and you're kind of mad about it, right? Right? And you're like, okay, I don't like this, right? Because what's happening is, from a psychological standpoint, it's affecting your risk tolerance, right? Almost like tolerance for food. Like when they say lactose intolerant, some people are risk intolerant. Some people get sick to their stomach, like, oh my God, every time I wake up and I see the red, it just bothers me. Oh my God, I can't take it. Well, that might mean you need some options in your life, right? Because what an option might help you do is it helps you kind of calibrate your risk and give yourself a chance to be in on the game without necessarily getting body slammed when the prices start to drop. That's where economic education becomes extremely important in terms of what we can do for you in the Black Business School. Julian does great stuff in the Freedom School, and also again, stockoptionsmasterclass.com. If you want to learn more about options, it's a 6-week program, so there's a ton of curricula there that'll break it all down for you. And I can tell you guys with complete certainty and clarity that stock options are something that you want to do because that's the next level of investing. It's going to become even more important in the year 2022 because, again, we talked about risk. You have the known, you have the unknown, and then you have the unknown. There are a lot of unknown factors in terms of what's going to happen next year. Nobody knows, what the Federal Reserve is going to do. Nobody knows what this inflation problem is going to look like 6 months from now. Nobody knows what this virus is going to look like later on. Nobody, there's going to be a variant on top of a variant and another variant, and maybe another variant will come along that'll completely kill the economy. Nobody knows, right? So options kind of allow you to protect yourself from that. So I would encourage you to look into it as a way to protect your portfolio, protect your investment. Okay, so I'm trying to do good and not you overuse my time, and I'm gonna let Julian and the crew kind of take over. This generational wealth conference, to me, I'm super excited to be a part of this. I'm very proud, man, what you all put together, because we got like between 12 to 15 experts that are coming in and covering pretty much everything. So I've done my piece. I'm gonna sit in the back and watch and learn and support. And again, stockoptionsmasterclass.com if you guys want to take a look. And I'll pass the mic back over to Julian.
What's going on? Thank Doc. That was absolutely amazing, man. Thank you so much for educating us on the game. Just added another financial tool to our tool belt. So appreciate you, man. And just everything that you do.
All right. See you later.
Cool. So, good. So, greatest takeaway.
Okay, everybody. So what you guys were listening to was my piece of the Generational Wealth Conference, which is happening right now. If you guys want to join us, feel free to go to generationalwealthconference.com, or you can also go to boycewatkins.com, and you can see the link right there on the page. And then, of course, the Stock Options Masterclass is stockoptionsmasterclass.com. Okay, yeah, 86 says it's a great program. I learned a ton. Yeah, it's I appreciate the recommendation, 86. Yeah, it's worth taking a look at. And also, there's a 30-day 100% money back guarantee on any programs in the Black Business School. So you will be happy, because if you're not happy, you will get your money back. So there's no risk to you whatsoever. And I think it's definitely worth a look. So it's stockoptionsmasterclass.com. All right, guys, I'm going to go and live the rest of my life. But here we go. There's the URL. I'll put it on the screen in case you didn't hear it. All right, so have a good day, everybody. God bless you. Love you. And I'll see you guys soon. Take care now. Bye-bye.